times remember me and fight. When your mind and intellect are set on me, to me alone shall you come without doubt. Shri Krishna is telling Arjun, and through Arjun to all of us, because Arjun is a representative of all human beings, that if one wishes to remember God during one's last moments, then at all times one should remember the Supreme Soul and fight. Shri Krishna once again uses the word asanshaya, means sanshay rahit. It is an undoubted fact. That was also used in the 5th verse. If one wishes to remember God during the time of death, then they should remember God at all times. Half an hour before we enter into the office, if we are thinking about what we have to take to the office and put that to one side to get everything ready before our journey, then in the same way we should think about everything we have to take after leaving the body and what we need to take for the place where we're going to go, so that we can collect those items to prepare. We should keep remembering these items. The Marathi saints interpret this verse very nicely, that Varuni Sagarakal Maj Atava Chananyu, meaning therefore always remember me and get joined with battle. Is battle anything less? Tukaram Maharaj says, Ratri Divasamha Yudhyacha Prasang Antyabahya Jagat Nimam. Day and night we have a battle. This battle is that we have a mind on one side and the world on the other. And the world is also split into two. The world inside us and the world outside us. I repeat, day and night we have a battle. This battle is that we have our mind on one side and the world on the other. And the world is also split into two. The world inside us and the world outside us. This is the conflict. What I think should be and what is. This is the two different worlds of the inside and the outside. The world of our wishes is one, and the world in reality is different. This is the war. One should remember the Supreme Soul at all times. If you keep remembering the Lord and continue your conflict with the world, then victory is yours. What we do is that we remember the world and keep in conflict with God. We keep remembering the world and we sit by God asking why something happened, why we did not get something, and complaining about the world. We are remembering the world in the situation because we are asking God why someone got something and we didn't. We remember the world and conflict with God. What should happen in reality is that there may be a conflict with the world, and this is fine, but we must always remember God. That is why Shri Krishna tells Arjun to remember him at all times and fight. Success is certain through continued efforts. One certainly attains the Supreme Soul's grace when one makes continued efforts. The word yudhyacha, fight, is not only about fighting with swords on the battlefield, but also applies to us in the battle of life, the battle between satya, truth, and asatya, untruth, sara, right, and narsara, wrong, gun, good qualities, and dosh, bad qualities. This is a very big battle. One has to make efforts. Shri Krishna says clearly that one has to fight. Look how much the Gita is about action. Look how much the Gita is about making efforts. God does not say, remember me and everything will be finished. No, the Supreme Soul says to remember him at all times and also fight. It is not as if one should remember God and just sit there with prayer beads so that everything will happen. A lot of people say, I have handed it to God and so it will happen. No, it will not happen. Shri Krishna says to fight. It is good that one should remember God, but do not give up your efforts. You will need efforts. Otherwise, Shri Krishna would have just told Arjun to remember him and that he will win the war. One must make efforts and one must fight. In efforts, you need continuity. I often give a very simple example. If you want to break a coconut, then if you try to break it for the first time, then it may not break. You try to break it again, but it will not break. You try to break it a third time, and it does not break. It then breaks the fourth time, and the person standing next to you says, you should have broke it like the first time. It is fine that the coconut broke on the fourth attempt, but the 3 attempts before that were not wrong. They were not useless. It is because of the first 3 attempts were made that the 4th attempt was successful. They have not gone to waste. In the same way, we may make efforts and fail, but these are not failures. This is just the imagination of human beings. People say that they are failures, but they are not failures. Every action is successful, and failure is a step on the path of success. It is only after climbing 10 steps that you can reach the first floor of the building. But if someone says that you should have just climbed the 10th step first, and just tell them that the first 9 steps you took you closer to the 10th step. It is because you climbed those 9 steps that you were able to climb the 10th step, and that is why you're able to come on the first floor. Efforts should be continuous. If there is frustration in efforts, then thinkers have said it very clearly that this frustration is a sign of atheism. If one gets frustrated while making efforts, then no matter if this person is going to the temple 10 times a day or doing mara, turning a prayer bead while chanting God's name, then because he's frustrated, just consider him to be an atheist. This is because he has thought that he is making a lot of efforts, but nothing is happening. The word Gnostic, meaning atheist, can be split into na, meaning no, and asti, being. No being. Therefore, atheism is a feeling that there is no being and that everything is going to waste. On one side, Sri Krishna is saying that nothing which you do will goes to waste. So how can you possibly get frustrated? Maya covered it in this class in chapter 6. Frustration is a revelation of atheism. A person who is frustrated does not have trust in himself, nor does he have trust in God. One should feel that because they are doing so many karmas, God is watching them. One should have the attitude that he will continue making efforts. Of course, it is possible that the fruit you expected may not come, but this does not mean that it is a failure. Your God is watching you, and therefore you should keep making efforts. The words used are sarveshu kaleshu, meaning always and at all times. It also means during childhood, youth, adulthood, and elderly life. It means during each and every one of the stages in life. Here, leaving the body during one's final moments is said over and over again. We interpret this at the time of death, and this is right. But what is the time of death? Anyone know? What is the time of death? There are many different types of death, and they're all worth understanding. One should remember God during each and every one of these deaths. The first is a kshanik death, meaning death we have during each and every moment. We are dying at each and every moment. This is because when this moment goes away, then it is not going to come again during our whole lives. For example, right now it is 7:40 and 2 seconds. At that moment, we'll never come back again. Therefore, have we not died during that moment? Of course we have. This is a kshanik death. At that moment, we should remember the Supreme Soul. This is because this is an end. It's an end of a moment. Secondly, is a dainik death. The day has gone and will not come back again. Thinkers say that sleep is like a death. Sleep is like a short death. Every night we are rehearsing for death. Sleep is a death. We die for those 6 hours, 7 hours, or 8 hours that we sleep for. We have died. It is the Lord's grace that our eyes open at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. in the morning on the next day. If they do not open, then who will you go and ask? Who will you go and complain to? You have died. It is death. Sleep is a short death. If you're going to sleep at night, pray to God and remember God. You need your body when you go to sleep at night, just like you left your body during that moment. In the same way, you leave your body at night time. At night time, we have a sound sleep, so we do not know if someone comes and kicks us or moves our blanket. You have left your body at that time. One should remember God even at that time. In fact, it is very important at that time. Throughout the whole day, this bowl in the form of the mind has become filled, and therefore you should empty it when you go to sleep at night. While doing your prayers, think for one moment how this mind has become filled up. How much has gone into your mind during the day? Imagine that your mind is like a bowl and you are turning it upside down to empty its contents into the dustbin. When the bowl becomes empty, and remember God by praying, Gararaninde napadaranindam, then what will happen? We have two minds. Psychologists say that we have the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. Anyone know the difference between the two? Conscious mind, subconscious mind? Throughout the day, we have our conscious mind that gets filled up like a bowl. But then when we go to sleep at night, then the conscious mind closes, and that is why we can sleep. Otherwise, if the conscious mind is still running, then how can we sleep? We have to close the conscious mind. In factories, you have day shift workers and night shift workers. The day shift worker is a conscious mind, and his duty changes. When his duty changes, then he gives all the keys and equipment to the night shift worker. In the same way, the day shift worker, that is the conscious mind, hands over to the responsibility to the night shift worker, that is the subconscious mind, and says, goodbye, I'm going, and I'll come back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Until then, this duty is yours. The conscious mind has handed over responsibility to the subconscious mind. This night shift watchman does not have to do anything. The night shift worker just sits on the chair and does nothing. In the same way, the conscious mind hands over responsibility to the subconscious mind during sleep. And what does the subconscious mind do? The subconscious mind just sits there because it does not have to do anything, because there is no activity. It is subconscious. Just as much running around the conscious mind had to do, that much the subconscious mind would have nothing to do. What then does the subconscious mind do? The subconscious mind does stay awake, but what does it do? Give it a name such as Shri Krishna Sharavanam Mama. I seek refuge in the lotus feet of Shri Krishna. Or we can give it another name such as Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I bow down to the Supreme Soul, who is the son of Vasudev. The conscious mind, that is the day shift worker, should give this to the subconscious mind, that is the night shift worker. If you keep doing this, then the sleep will no longer remain a straightforward sleep. The sleep will become a yoga sleep. The entire night will be an accomplishment in yoga, and the entire night will be a meditation. This is because the subconscious mind is repetitive. It holds on to something, then it does not let go of that thing. It is mechanical. The conscious mind does a lot of jumping, but the subconscious mind does not do a lot of jumping. The subconscious mind just stores that which is given to it, and it is mechanical. Before sleeping, if the subconscious mind holds on to the name of God, then it will keep going throughout the whole night. The subconscious mind will keep running mechanically if you let it continue running mechanically. This sleep will become a yoga sleep. This is because if you give money to the subconscious mind, then money will always be in the subconscious mind. Guruji always says during the Srimad Bhagavad Gita that the meaning of the name Hiranyakashipu, anyone heard of him? Hiranyakashipu, the demon, can be found by breaking it down. Hiranya means gold, and Kashipu means pillow. One whose pillow is gold is Hiranyakashipu, the demon. By gold, I don't mean that he places jewelry under his pillow when he goes to sleep, but he continuously keeps thinking about gold. This is Hiranyakashipu, and this is a demon. If one is thinking about gold, silver, diamonds, and pearls throughout the whole day, then he is Hiranyakashipu. I'll say it slowly, that even if a person puts a key to their cupboard underneath their pillow, then this is Hiranyakashipu. This is because such a person keeps thinking about that. This person will only go to sleep if they put their hands under their pillow and they find that key. Otherwise, they will not get any sleep. If they do not feel the key, then they will immediately jump up thinking, where is the key? This is Hiranyakashipu. This lives in all of us, and we do not have to look for it anywhere outside. All you have to do is remove that which is on the inside. When, with the Prahlad residing in us, awaken who we call Lord Vishnu, and say to give this Hiranyakashipu liberation, to give this greed liberation, and to give this hold of worldliness liberation. Prahlad should awaken from the inside. This is because Lord Vishnu is there. Vishnu, what does Vishnu mean? It means all-pervading, and he is there. He is only waiting for Prahlad to awaken. Lord Narsi, the incarnation, was in the pillar, but he only manifested himself when Prahlad called for him. There is a third type of death, and this is avastanta death. This is when a phase changes. From childhood, one becomes a teenager, then one becomes a youth, and a young adult. The phases of life change. From youth, one goes to middle age, the phase changes. These are deaths. The child dies, then it becomes a youth. The youth dies, and it becomes a middle age. Even at that time, one should remember God. Shri Krishna says that one should remember him. Fourth is a death of ignorance. When ignorance is killed, then this is a very big death. This is because after this, a new birth takes place. When a Brahmin child, a Kshatriya child, or any other child gets a Janoi, sacred thread, then that child becomes Dvija, twice born. Dvi means second, Ja means born, twice born. A second birth is Dvija. When the child gets a Janoi sacred thread, then what happens is that the child becomes Dvija, twice born. The child's first birth is killed. Accepting oneself as a pupil of a guru is become Dvija, twice born. This is because during one's first life, one has done whatever they did in life and it is gone. Now the pupil has come to the refuge of the guru, and the guru accepts the pupil and shapes the pupil's life. The Guruji does this paroksha directly and aparoksha indirectly. This is becoming Dvija, twice born. That is why it is said in Sanskrit that Gururiya Mrityu, a guru is death. This is because when the pupil goes to the guru, then what is old must die, and a positive change must come in the guru's company. Fifth, there is Dehanta death, which we call Mrityu, the great death. Just like we went from one phase to another, in the same way we went from one body to another. This is also death. Even at that time, you should remember God. During all of these Anta Samaya last moments, one should remember God. This means that one should remember God Sarveshu Kaleshu during at all times. Srimad Ramanujacharya says in his commentary that Sarveshu Kaleshu Apranyad Asa. One should keep remembering God during every moment, day after day, until one's departure. We should understand the meaning of the word Anusmara. I do not know when this 8th chapter will finish, because I'm making efforts, but who knows. What rush do we have? Because there's a lot of days to think about death. What does Anusmarara mean? We have words in order to make comparisons with this. We have Anukaran, Anusmaran, Anusaran, and in the same way, Anusmaran. What does Anukaran mean? If someone is doing something and we copy them, this is called Anukaran. Someone is doing something, we copy them, this is called Anukaran. Anusaran means somebody is walking and we walk after them. What then is Anusmaran? Anyone know? Yes, Anusmaran means when one remembers someone and then remembers them again, so that they're always thinking about them. The sugar candy of remembering never breaks. This is Anusmaran. If you have a chain smoker, then he has a need for the smoking. He just likes a cigarette once and keeps smoking cigarette after cigarette. He is Anudumparapan. In the same way, this Anusmaran means that as soon as someone remembers the name of God or God himself, then he immediately remembers that again. It is a continuous process of remembering and remembering. This is one meaning. Devotees have also given a very beautiful meaning to the word Anusmaran. This is, Lord, what do I take Anusmaran to mean? Just like doing what someone else is doing is Anukaran, and walking behind someone else who is walking is Anusmaran, then Lord, what is Anusmaran? Lord, I know that you are doing Anusmaran of me. Lord, I know that you never forget me. In the 26th verse of the 7th chapter of the Gita, the Lord said, Vedaham samhitani vartmana nichajarjuna bhavishani chabhutani mantu vedana kashana. I know the things that are past, that are present, Arjun, and that are to come, but me, no one knows. Shri Krishna said in that verse that he knows everything. The Lord knows all creatures that have been there in the past, that are there in the present, and that will be there in the future. The devotee tells God that, Lord, I know that you remember me. Lord, just like you remember me, in the same way, after your remembrance, I am always remembering you, and this is Anusmaran. The Lord remembers a devotee, and a devotee remembers the Lord. The very fact that the person has a life remembers that God is remembering him. I said earlier that we go to sleep at night, but why can we wake up in the morning? It is because God remembers us. If a person wishes to open his eyes, and God says that he has forgotten the person, therefore he won't be able to open his eyes, then what will happen? The Lord has not forgotten you, and the Lord has remembered you. Not only that, but during every moment, the Lord is sitting inside you. Yuntak pravishya mamavacha mamprasuktam sanjivatya kila shakti darvasya tamna. Lord, you are there, and that is why my breath is running. Lord, I am not taking a breath, you are taking the breath. Lord, you are there, and that is why my breath is running. Lord, I am not taking the breath, you are taking the breath. The very fact that your breath is running proves that, Lord, you are not forgetting me, and you are remembering me. Lord, you are remembering me, and I am remembering you. Lord, I at least want this from you. This is what Anusmaran is. When one walks behind the Supreme Soul and does Anusmaran, then one will reach God. There are three types of remembering. There's Bodhajanya Smaran, Sambhajanya Smaran, and Kriyajanya Smaran. Let us think about them. What is Bodhajanya Smaran? It is remembering one's being and existence. A human being never forgets this. For example, if you say, I'm a human being, then do we forget that? No, because it is your being. I am a man or I am a woman is our existence. We never forget this. We never forget this being of ours. In the same way, when one remembers their being as belonging to God, then what can one forget this? A person should realize that his being, that is he, belongs to God. This is Bodhajanya Smaran. I remember a lot of things, but I can't fit them in now. But there's a story in the Upanishads that a lion cub enters into the land of sheep. The lion cub enters into the land of sheep, gets brought up with these sheep. The lion cub forgot who it was, and the lion comes up to it and reminds it that it is a lion by telling it to look at its face and look at this lion's face. The lion tells the cub just to roar like it roars. By roaring, the lion remembered its being, that it was not a sheep but a lion. Even though it got brought up with a sheep, it roared and it realized its being, that it's not a sheep but a lion. Once the lion cub realized its being, then would this lion have to explain to it again? No, because the moment when the individual realizes her being, that she belongs to the Lord, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, then she never forgets that. Second, there is Sambandhyajanya Smaran, which is remembering because of a relationship. Sambandhajanya Smaran. We remember our view that we are this body because we have created a relationship with this body. The moment when the relationship with the body breaks, then at that moment we forget that body that is ours. When we enter another body, then can we say that this body is ours? No. And if we do, then people will say that there is a ghost and that they should get it out. Therefore, we have to leave the body. This relationship breaks. When we say that this material world is ours, then we create a relationship with it, and that is why we remember it. Any remembrance that is created out of relationship is remembered until that relationship is released or breaks. Until then, this remembrance that is created at the relationship does not go away. Two things come in this. Remembrance of the wrong relationships should be released, and remembrance of the right relationships should be tied. One should know that they do not belong to the material world, and that this material world is not theirs. One should remember that they are not the body. All these relationships should break, and one should create relationships where one remembers that one belongs to the Lord, that the Lord is his, and that one is tied to the Lord. Once this relationship is created, then this relationship is fixed. Then one cannot forget that relationship. When one gets married, then that relationship is fixed. The woman realizes that the groom is a husband, and the groom realizes that she is his wife. This relationship is tied. So, can the wife possibly forget that he is her husband? And can the husband possibly forget that she is his wife? No, it cannot. It can be forgotten if the relationship is broken and they get divorced. But until the relationship is there, then they cannot forget it. In the same way, the devotee and the Lord have an eternal relationship. This is Sambandha Janya Smaran. Thirdly, there is Kriya Janya Smaran. The scriptures also call this Abhyas Janya Smaran. There are so many remembrances that can be done through actions or through practice. Our entire life is remembrances done through practice. That is why Vedantis give a very nice example of the women in the villages of ancient India. who go to collect water from the well with a pot balanced on their heads. They do not even touch the pots with their hands, while the pots are balanced on their heads. While they walk, they are gossiping about what is going on in the town, yet the pot does not fall from their heads. In the same way, there are many examples of remembrance done through practice. A person walking on a tightrope does a lot of different tricks and does everything including tilting, but during every moment he knows that he's balancing on the tightrope and that he has to balance himself. He has practiced this. When you go to see a play in a theatre, and the person who's playing the main part never stops talking for 3 hours, he remembers exactly what he has to say throughout the play. He does it once, twice, and then he has done 150 shows where he remembers exactly what he has to say. How can you remember all of this? We do not even remember what we said 10 minutes ago, but how can you remember this? This is because he has had practice. This is remembering through practice. This person has done rehearsals for a month or a month and a half. He has memorized the entire script. This is Abhyas Janya Smaran. Our driver is driving the car. This is remembering through practice. When you are trying to learn to drive a car, then you have to remember how to use a steering wheel, and the experience for the teacher sitting on the side is worth seeing. When the student tries to press down on the accelerator and he turns the steering wheel the wrong way around, the driving instructor puts the steering wheel straight. When the driving instructor puts the steering wheel straight, the pupil lets go of the clutch and the gears go out of order. The driving instructor then tells the student to press down on the clutch and to change the gears. This is what happens, and after practicing slowly and slowly, then this driver steers with one hand, turns the gear with the other hand, and looks out towards the surroundings and gives a signal on while talking to his boss. The reason for this is because he has had practice. This is exactly what we have to do in life. When we are driving the car that we call life, then we have to do everything, including turning the steering wheel and changing the gears, for example, to go on a different type of road. The way to success is going through a slow road where one has to use a clutch more often. All of this happens, but while doing all of this, they are looking out of the window, waving, signaling, and doing everything. But while doing everything, they have to speak to the boss. This is practice. While doing all of this, one should not break their speaking with God and their conversation with God. This is Abhyas, study. There are even 3 types of Abhyas Janya Smaran, remembering through practice. Abhyas Janya Smaran is worth understanding on a practical aspect because in Bodh Janya Smaran, one's being keeps changing, and this is not such a big thing. Sambodh Janya Smaran is important if one ties a relation, but anyone can do that. Abhyas Janya Smaran, remembering through practice, anyone can do because anyone can practice. This Abhyas Janya Smaran, remembering through practice, has 3 types. The first is performing the actions of the material world and then remembering God. This is the first type of practice. All our routines and responsibilities of the material world, such as cooking food in the kitchen, going to the office for work, looking after business, attending phone calls, going to weddings, going to receptions, and eating ice cream and everything else, when one remembers the Lord while performing all of these activities of the material world, then this is one type of practice. But if we try to understand it subtly, then what happens is that the material actions become important, and remembering God is seen as less important. The person feels as if the activities of the material world should not be spoilt or ruined. People come to holy discourses, but wish for them to finish by 8:30 p.m. so that they can go to their shows afterwards. They feel as if the activities of the material world should not be ruined. Only then will they remember God. Of course, the activities of the material world are necessary, but what if the activities of the material world are ruined? If this happens, then people do not remember God. The material world is more important for these people. This is practice, and in practice, you have to begin somewhere. Secondly, remember God all the time, and then perform the activities of the material world. This is the second type of practice. Remembering God all the time, and then performing the activities of the material world. This is the second type of practice. In the first type of practice, what happens was that the activities of the material world were more important, and remembering the Lord was less important. Now what happened here is that remembering the Lord has become important, and the activities of the material world have become less important. Now, it does not matter if the holy discourse finishes at 8:15 rather than 8:30, or 8:45 rather than 8:30, then people will reach the show in 15 minutes late, but it does not matter to them. Do not worry, because if the Holy Discourse is managed to finish at 7, then I will finish at 7. This is what has changed. The material world has become less important, and remembering the Lord has become more important. The reason for this is that the devotee feels that there should not be any imperfections in her remembrance of the Lord. Whether the activities of the material world have gone well or have gone badly, it does not matter to them, because they feel that in the end they have to die anyway. Even if the activities have gone well, then they have to die, and even if the activities have not gone well, then they still have to die. That which is going to come with them is a remembrance of the Lord, which is everlasting, immortal, and eternal. When one understands this, then that practice starts where one remembers the Lord and then performs the activities of the material world. The third practice is understanding the activities of the material world to be godly activities. The devotee feels that everything he is doing in the material world is an action for God. The devotee feels as if God has given her a responsibility. She knows that she has not given rise to the material world. Why then has she come into this situation? Why has she got this mother and this father? Why has she got this husband? Why does this happen to her? Why does all of this get arranged for her? Why did all of these circumstances arise for her? Why did her practice go like this? She knows all the mistakes that were made were hers, and if anything is good, then it is the Lord's. That is why the entire material world is the Lord's, and the devotee is the Lord's. The activities that the devotee will do in the material world is the Lord's, and that is why the devotee will keep remembering the Lord. That is why Shri Krishna tells Arjuna to remember him at all times and to fight. One should also fight. Why did Arjuna fight in the end? He said, Karishya vachanam tava. Lord, I will do as you wish. As Arjuna said in the 18th chapter of the Gita, Arjuna is going to battle because the Lord is telling him to go to battle. This war is God's, and that is why the war of the Mahabharata is called a war of Dharma. Can a war be a war of Dharma? The Mahabharata is called a war of Dharma. This is because it is a responsibility that has been given from God. In the same way, your and my material world and what we call life can become a war of Dharma, if we consider it to be a responsibility given to us by the Supreme Soul. If I were to say it by way of an example, then when a mother and father are getting their daughter married, when the daughter has reached the age of 25 or 26, then they prepare for the wedding for 8 to 9 months. They do everything. They do shopping, where they buy saris, they go to buy jewelry, they discuss everything with the caterers, they organize a band, they print the wedding invitations, and do everything. But at the time of doing all of this, both the mother and the father know that this is an occasion for their daughter, and they think about what their daughter will like. They think about what will feel right for their daughter. They think about whether their daughter will be happy because of it or not. Have they done everything or not? There's a difference between the sky and the earth when a father is getting clothes for himself and when he is going to buy clothes for himself for his daughter's wedding. In the latter occasion, the father asks his daughter what would look nice for him to wear, the suit at the wedding. But in the former, when he was going to buy a suit for himself, then this was a different situation altogether. In the first situation, the father is telling his daughter that the suit is for him. In the last situation, the father is telling his daughter that the suit is for her. This is because the father will wear the suit, but he will only wear the suit for his daughter's special event. He's going to wear the suit for his daughter's wedding. Therefore, this time, if the father is buying the suit for himself and is still thinking about his daughter, because it's his daughter's occasion, in the same way, a devotee lives his life by thinking that, Lord, this is your material world, and this whole material world is your occasion. The whole material world is your special event, and Lord, this is how I will live. When one thinks this in his mind, then he fulfills all the responsibilities of his life. He eats, drinks, and is merry, but he knows that, Lord, this is your occasion, and I remember you at each and every moment. This is understanding the activities of the material world to be godly activities. In the third and fourth lines of this verse, Shri Krishna tells Arjuna that if he gives his mind and his intellect to the Lord, then he will attain the Lord. Of this, there is no doubt. This is a very simple and straightforward thing. We are where our minds and our intellects are focused on. If our minds and our intellect go and sit in a cinema, then sooner or later we're going to go and sit in a cinema. If our mind and intellect go and sit in the kitchen, then sooner or later we'll also go and sit in the kitchen. It is determined where we will be depending on where our minds and intellects are. And in reality, we are never where our bodies are, we are where our minds and intellects are. This is because our minds take us and the intellect gives it a push so that the body has to go there. The word monorath, chariot, that is our minds, means that the wish that we have in our minds direct the chariot in the form of the body to go towards there. Then what happens if the mind and intellect go towards the Supreme Soul? This is what the Lord is going to say in the 8th verse of the 12th chapter of the Gita. It says, Mai arpito mano buddhihi yomad bhakta samepriya. On me alone, fix your mind, let your intellect dwell in me. On me alone, fix your mind, let your intellect dwell in me. A devotee who gives his mind and intellect to the Lord is dear to the Lord. We will talk about this in the 12th chapter. Before we go on to the next verse, we must understand a pre-introduction that at the end of the 7th chapter of the Gita, Shri Krishna had explained 7 things to Arjun. At the beginning of this 8th chapter of the Gita, Arjun asked 7 questions to Shri Krishna in relation to those 7 things, and Shri Krishna said within the first 7 verses of this 8th chapter, Shri Krishna gave the answers to those 7 questions. Does anyone notice a trend here? 7, 7, 7. Shri Krishna had explained 7 things to Arjun. Arjun asked 7 things to Shri Krishna, and Shri Krishna gave the answers to those things all in 7 verses. 7, 7, 7. From the 8th verse, the Lord will begin to go a little deeper. 8th verse. Line by line.